You know that sensation when everything suddenly comes to a halt? Like your hearing is muffled, and the only sound you can make out is the thud of your own pulse? That's exactly what I felt when Tracy from HR pushed that sheet of paper toward me across her cheap IKEA desk. A 60% reduction in pay. Starting now. I just sat there, staring at the figure, as if my gaze alone could somehow alter it. 60%. I didn't break down. Not in that moment. Instead, I forced a smile and replied, "I'll need a day to think about this proposal," as if I were some corporate automaton, as if my world hadn't just been shattered. The tears came later, in my car, ugly and uncontrollable, mascara streaking down my face as I sobbed so hard the windows fogged up. I remained in the parking garage for nearly an hour, completely falling apart. Because what do you do when the company you've dedicated 9 years of your life to suddenly decides you're worth less than half of what you earned yesterday? I should probably introduce myself. My name is Eleanor Reeves, Ellie for short. I'm 36, and I'm a single mother to an incredible 10-year-old boy named Lucas, and until that meeting, I had been the Director of Client Solutions at Merrick Technologies. Even now, 3 years later, it's still painful to talk about. If you're watching this, could you do me a favor and hit like, subscribe, or leave a comment, or just let me know where you're tuning in from? I need to feel like I'm not shouting into an empty space, that someone out there understands what it's like to have your entire life upended in a 15-minute conversation. I started at American when it was just a small team of 20 people working out of a repurposed warehouse. You know the type of startup? I'm talking ping-pong tables, free snacks, happy hours, all those perks that seem so meaningful until they're not. I was hired as a client manager, but I poured everything into my work, staying late, coming in on weekends, missing school events, and delaying vacations. All the things you're told not to do, but you do anyway because you believe you're building something meaningful. And I was good, really good. Within 3 years, I was overseeing our top 10 accounts, clients who generated over 70% of our revenue. I knew their systems inside and out, their challenges, their birthdays, even their kids' names. These weren't just accounts to me. They were relationships I had personally cultivated. When Lucas's father decided that marriage and fatherhood were holding him back and left for Austin with a yoga instructor named Sky, yes, that was her actual name, those client relationships became even more crucial. They weren't just part of my career. They were my lifeline, my stability. By year 5, I was promoted to director. I had a team of 8, equity, and a salary that allowed me to cover our mortgage and Lucas's asthma medication without having to choose between food and utilities. For the first time since the divorce, I could finally breathe. Then Martech Corporation acquired us. I still remember the all-hands meeting vividly. Vernon Chang, our founder, stood on that small stage in the cafeteria, telling us how thrilling this new chapter would be, how Martech's resources would help us grow. Everyone applauded like trained seals, while I sat there wondering why Vernon couldn't meet anyone's eyes. $3 million. That's what I later discovered he received from the acquisition. $3 million, fully vested. The rest of us? Our equity was practically worthless, with 4 more years to vest under the new terms. The first 6 months weren't awful. We got new email signatures, new procedures, and more meetings. But I still had my team, my clients, and my salary. Then, the layoffs began. First, they let go of the junior staff, then middle management. Each time, there was a company-wide email about streamlining operations and leveraging synergies. Each time someone's desk would be empty the next day. No goodbyes, just gone. I kept my head down and worked even harder. My team shrank from 8 to 3, but our workload didn't decrease. If anything, it grew. I was putting in 70-hour weeks, answering emails at 3 a.m. and having panic attacks in the bathroom between meetings. Lucas started asking why I was always on my laptop, why I couldn't make it to his soccer games, why I always looked exhausted. Still, I convinced myself I was safe. After all, I managed the relationships that brought in most of our revenue. They needed me, or so I thought, right up until Tracy from HR scheduled a quick touch base. I should have known something was off when I walked in and saw Dennis Porter from Martech sitting there. Dennis, with his 2 overly white veneers, and his Rolex, which he made sure everyone noticed. Dennis, who had been sent from corporate to optimize the acquisition. "Eleanor," he said, he never called me Ellie, "we've reviewed the organizational structure, and we believe there's an opportunity to adjust your compensation to match market standards." Market standards, as if I was some replaceable commodity. Tracy slid the paper across the desk. The new salary was right there in bold. $52,000 down from $130,000. "This reflects the evolving nature of your role," Dennis explained, as if he were delivering good news. "We're centralizing most client management functions at headquarters. You'll be transitioning to a more regional support role. In other words, we're taking your clients, your authority, and most of your paycheck, but we still expect you to do the work. You'll keep your current responsibilities during the transition period," he added. "Of course," Tracy chimed in, avoiding my gaze. "We'll need your decision by tomorrow. If this new arrangement doesn't work for you, we understand, but we'll have to start looking for someone who aligns with our new structure." Someone cheaper, she meant. Someone desperate. They knew I was a single mom. They knew about Lucas's medical needs. They knew about my mortgage. This wasn't a negotiation. It was an ambush. "I'll need 24 hours, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my head. "I have some questions about the transition plan and reporting structure." Dennis nodded, pleased with my professionalism. Tracy looked relieved that I wasn't making a scene. I don't remember walking back to my desk or packing up my laptop. All I recall is sitting in my car, shaking, wondering how I was going to tell Lucas we might lose our home. That's when my phone rang. It was Kira Chen, my former colleague who had left American 6 months earlier. I almost ignored it, but then I thought, why not? Maybe she just wanted to catch up. Maybe I could pretend for 5 minutes that my life wasn't crumbling. "Hey, stranger," I answered, trying to sound normal. "Ellie," she said, "I've been trying to reach you all week. Have you checked your LinkedIn messages?" I hadn't. I'd been too busy keeping clients happy, preventing my team from quitting, and holding everything together. "Listen," Kira continued, "I'm at Nexus now. You know they're Martech's biggest competitor, right? My boss has been asking about you. We need someone with your client experience. Would you be open to a conversation?" I looked at the Mariexen building through my windshield, at the logo they had replaced ours with. I thought about Dennis, his watch, his veneers. I thought about Vernon Chang, who had sold us out and vanished to his beach house in Malibu. "Actually," I replied, "tonight would be perfect." I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. I wasn't naive. I knew reaching out to Martech's competitor would be a point of no return. But they had already decided I was expendable. What did I owe them? When I got home, I paid the babysitter, checked on Lucas, already asleep. I'd missed bedtime again, and opened my laptop. I spent an hour reviewing my employment contract. No non-compete clause. Merrick had been too small, too idealistic when I joined to bother with those. Martech had issued new contracts to newer hires, but they hadn't gotten around to us legacy employees yet. Their oversight. At 9:30, I called Kira back. "Can you set up a meeting with your boss tomorrow morning? Before I have to give Mariken my answer about something?" she asked. "Worse," I said. "They're slashing my salary by 60% but keeping all my responsibilities. Actually, they're adding more." Kira was quiet for a moment. Then, "Those bastards. Give me 15 minutes, she said. "I'm texting. Cameron right now." 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. "Eleanor, this is Cameron Reed from Nexus. Kira says we need to meet first thing tomorrow." His voice was warm and direct, no corporate jargon. "Yes," I replied. "I think we might be able to help each other. I'm guessing Martech is finally doing their post-acquisition purge?" "Something like that." "How does 7:30 a.m. sound? I can meet you at the Westside Cafe, away from both our offices. Kira says you have a decision to make tomorrow." 7:30 works," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. After we hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time, staring into space. Was I really doing this? Was I actually considering jumping ship to the competition? But it wasn't a ship anymore, was it? It was a sinking vessel, and Martech was throwing people overboard to save themselves. I opened my laptop again and pulled up my client files, not the official CRM data that belonged to the company, but my personal notes, 9 years of relationship details, who to call when contracts got stuck. In legal, which CTOs were planning system upgrades, which companies were unhappy with Martech's recent changes. Information that wasn't confidential exactly, but was invaluable. I had built these relationships. I had earned this knowledge, and tomorrow, I was going to find out what it was worth. I closed my laptop and checked on Lucas again, watching him sleep for a few minutes, his chest rising and falling, the inhaler on his nightstand, the science fair ribbon on his bulletin board. "I'm going to fix this," I whispered. "I promise." I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay awake, wondering if I was being reckless, if I was being disloyal. But loyal to what? A company that no longer existed except as a line on Martech's balance sheet? People who saw me as nothing more than a number they could cut. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to say to Cameron Reed, and to Dennis Porter. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the one I saved for closing major deals. My hair was perfect, my makeup flawless, my armor. I dropped Lucas off at school, hugged him tightly, and told him I loved him. "You okay, Mom?" he asked, looking up at me with his serious little face. "I will be," I said. And for the first time in months, I believed it. The Westside Cafe was quiet at 7:30, just a few early risers with laptops and travel mugs. Cameron was easy to spot, tall, with silver at his temples, dressed casually but expensively. Kira sat beside him and gave me a small wave. I took a deep breath and walked over. "Eleanor Reeves," Cameron said, standing and offering his hand. "I've heard a lot about you. From Kira, I assume, and from every client you've tried to poach from Marrickson over the years," I replied with a smile. "Well, those clients might be more open to conversations now." Cameron's eyebrows rose. "Is that so? Why don't you sit down and tell me exactly what's happening over there?" So I did. All of it. The acquisition, the culture shift, the way they were gutting the company while expecting the same results, the impossible workloads, the pay cut, Cameron listened without interrupting. When I finished, he glanced at Kira, then back at me. "Ellie," he said, "we've been waiting for you to call us for a long time." That sentence hung in the air. I remember taking a sip of coffee to buy myself a moment, because suddenly, this wasn't just about saving my job. This was about something bigger. "What exactly does that mean?" I asked. Cameron leaned forward. "It means we've tried to recruit you 3 times over the past 2 years. Each time, your loyalty to American won out. But Martex doesn't deserve that loyalty, and frankly, we're prepared to make you an offer that reflects how much we value your relationships and expertise." He pushed a folder across the table. Inside was an offer letter. Director of Strategic Partnerships, $165,000 base salary, 25% annual bonus potential, health benefits that would fully cover Lucas's medications, and stock options. This is... I couldn't finish the sentence. "Fair market value for someone with your skills and client portfolio," Cameron said. "Plus a signing bonus if you can start within 2 weeks. I stared at the number. It was $35,000 more than I'd been making at Marianne, more than 3 times what Martex was offering. "Why?" I asked. "Why this much?" Cameron didn't hesitate. "Because we've lost 8 major contracts to American in the past 4 years, all accounts you managed. Because our research shows that when clients work with you, their retention rate is 94%, compared to an industry average of 71%. Because I've personally had 3 CTOs tell me they stay with Marixon because of you." He took a sip of his coffee. "You're not just an account manager, Eleanor. You're a competitive edge, one that Martex is too short-sighted to recognize." Something inside me shifted. A lifetime of being underestimated, of working twice as hard for half the recognition, of smiling through meetings where men repeated my ideas louder and got the credit. And here was someone who actually saw my worth. "There's one more thing," Kira said quietly. Cameron nodded. "We've heard rumors that Martex is planning to move all client services overseas within 8 months. They're using these pay cuts to push people out so they don't have to pay severance." My stomach dropped. "How do you know that?" "Their new VP of operations came from Teledine. He did the same thing there 3 years ago. It's his playbook. 8 months. They weren't just cutting my pay, they were eliminating my job entirely. They just wanted me to train my replacement first." "I need to pick up my son from school at 3, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "But I can come back to Nexus with you right now. I'd like to see the office before I make a final decision." Cameron smiled. "Of course. And we'd like you to meet the team." 3 hours later, I walked back into the Martech Regional Office 8, with a signed offer letter from Nexus in my bag and a plan forming in my mind. Dennis was waiting in the conference room, looking impatient. Tracy sat beside him, a folder with my name on it in front of her. "Eleanor," Dennis said, not bothering to stand, "have you made your decision?" I sat down across from them, placed my hands flat on the table, and smiled. "I have some questions first," I said. Dennis sighed dramatically. "We really need a simple yes or no today. As we explained, we're restructuring the entire department." "I understand," I replied, "but I manage our 10 largest accounts."
"I'd like to know who will handle the Westfield implementation next month and the Alder contract renewal in June." Dennis waved his hand dismissively. "We'll assign those responsibilities appropriately. That's not something you need
to worry about." "Actually, it is," I said. "I promised Sonia at Westfield that I'd personally oversee their transition, and Market Alder specifically requested my involvement in the renewal discussions. Those are company relationships, not personal ones, Dennis said, his voice hardening. Now, about the offer. Is it true you're moving client services overseas in 8 months? The color drained from Dennis's face. Tracy suddenly became very interested in her folder. Where did you hear that? Dennis asked. So it's true? That's confidential company information. Then that's a yes, I said. Were you planning to tell me that before or after I accepted a 60% pay cut to train my replacement? This meeting is about your current offer, not hypothetical future restructuring, Dennis said, his jaw tight. Now, do you accept the new terms or not? I took a deep breath, thinking about Lucas, our home, the 9 years I'd given to this place. I quit, I said. The words hung in the air. Dennis blinked. Excuse me. I quit. Effective. Immediately. He recovered quickly, his expression settling into a smug smile. I'm afraid company policy requires 2 weeks' notice from director-level employees. Check my contract, I said. The original American contract, which was never updated after the acquisition. It states that notice periods are equivalent to severance periods. Since Martex never offered severance beyond 1 week, that's my required notice. The smile faltered. You'll need to transition your accounts. Actually, I don't, I replied. My contract also states that if compensation is reduced by more than 15%, all transition requirements are waived. That was added after Trey Miller quit and tried to hold his clients hostage for a better severance package, I continued. You might not remember since you weren't here, but I helped Vernon draft that clause. Dennis was turning an interesting shade of red. Tracy looked like she wanted to disappear. You can't just walk out on your responsibilities, Dennis sputtered. I stood up. Watch me. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and I've accepted a position with Nexus Technologies. Since Marixon never implemented a non-compete, and Martex never asked me to sign one, I'll be starting there on Monday. The explosion I expected didn't come. Instead, Dennis's face went completely blank, which was somehow more terrifying. You've just made a serious mistake, he said quietly. We'll review all your communications and client interactions. If we find even a hint that you've been poaching clients or sharing proprietary information, we'll bury you in litigation. I felt a chill, not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I knew how these things worked. Big companies with deep pockets could make your life miserable, even if you were completely innocent. I haven't taken anything that doesn't belong to me, I said. My client relationships, the trust I've built over 9 years, that belongs to me and I'm taking it with me. I walked out before he could respond, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. My team was waiting at my desk, Maria, Devon, and Priya, the last remnants of what had once been 8. They knew, of course. News spreads fast in a dying company. Is it true? Priya asked. You're leaving? I nodded. What about us? Devon looked terrified. He had a baby on the way. Check your emails in an hour, I said quietly. All of you. I packed my desk quickly. Family photos. The world's best boss mug my team had given me as a joke 2 Christmases ago. The emergency inhaler I kept for Lucas. 9 years of my life fit into one cardboard box. Security escorted me out. Company policy for high-risk departures. As if I were suddenly a threat. As if I hadn't given nearly a decade of my life to this place. I didn't cry this time. Not in the elevator. Not in the lobby. Not even in my car. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made 3 calls. First, to Cameron. I've quit. They took it about as well as you'd expect. We'll have legal ready, he said. Don't worry. Second, to my old boss, Vernon Chang. He picked up on the 4th ring, sounding like he was on a beach somewhere. Ellie, is everything okay? Not really, Vernon. Martex just tried to cut my salary by 60%. I quit and took a job with Nexus. Silence. Then, I'm sorry, Ellie. The acquisition wasn't supposed to go like this. But it did, I said. And now they're threatening to sue me for taking another job, a job that pays me what I'm actually worth. More silence. What do you need from me? I need you to remind them that you never implemented non-competes at Marrickson, because you said, and I quote, "If we don't treat people well enough to make them want to stay, we deserve to lose them." Vernon sighed. I'll call Gerald Martex myself. This isn't right. My 3rd call was to Sonia West, CTO at Westfield International, our biggest client, whose system implementation was scheduled for next month. Sonia, it's Ellie Reeves. Ellie, I was just about to call you. We need to move up the implementation timeline by 2 weeks. The board... Sonia, I interrupted gently. I'm not with Marrickson anymore. As of today. The shock in her voice was palpable. What? Where are you going? Nexus Technologies. Cameron Reed's company. Our backup vendor. Another pause. Is this because of the Martex acquisition? We've been worried about that ourselves. Service has been slipping. It is, I confirmed. They're making major changes, including removing me from your account. Without telling us? Yes. Who's taking over the implementation? They wouldn't say, Sonia cursed. This implementation is critical. The board is watching it personally. We specifically requested you in the contract. I know, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Send me your new contact info at Nexus. We need to talk. By the time I picked Lucas up from school, I'd received 14 text messages and 23 emails. 6 from my team forwarding instructions. From Dennis to maintain client continuity and prepare transition documents for all my accounts. 1 from Vernon confirming he'd spoken to Gerald Martex directly, and the rest from clients who had somehow already heard I was leaving. Mom? Lucas climbed into the car, immediately sensing something was different. Why are you picking me up? It's not Friday. I turned to look at him. This beautiful, serious little boy who deserved so much better than a mother who was always working, always stressed, always one bad month away from disaster. I left my job today, I said simply. The one you're always working at. The one that makes you cry sometimes when you think I'm asleep. My heart broke a little. Of course he'd noticed. Yeah, that one. Good, he said firmly. I didn't like how they treated you. I got a new job, I told him. One that pays better, gives me more time with you, and has better insurance for your asthma medication. He considered this. Will you be able to come to my science fair next month? Front row, I promised. With embarrassing signs and everything. He grinned. Cool. That night, after Lucas was asleep, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Is this Eleanor Reeves? A man's voice, unfamiliar. Yes. This is Gerald Martex. I understand we have a situation. My blood ran cold. The founder and CEO of Martex Corporation calling me personally. Mr. Martex, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, I suppose we do. Vernon Chang called me. He's very upset about how you've been treated. I said nothing. I waited. I've also received calls from Sonia West at Westfield and Mark Chen at Alder Technologies, both expressing concern about your departure and hinting they may need to reevaluate their vendor relationships. Still, I waited. Ms. Reeves, are you actively encouraging our clients to follow you to Nexus? No, sir. I've simply informed them that I'm no longer with the company. They've drawn their own conclusions. Dennis Porter tells a different story. Dennis Porter offered me a 60% pay cut without any reduction in responsibilities, didn't tell me the position was being eliminated in 8 months, and then threatened to sue me for accepting another job. The pay cut and outsourcing plan were not approved by me or the executive committee, he said. And yet they happened. Another silence. What would it take to bring you back to repair this situation? I almost laughed. You can't be serious? I'm very serious. Westfield and Alder represent over $20 million in annual contracts. If they leave, others will follow. We've run the numbers. It would be significantly less expensive to keep you than to lose those accounts. Now I did laugh. So I'm worth keeping if it costs you millions to lose me, but not if it just makes my life impossible. Do you hear yourself, Mr. Martech? Business is business, Miss Reeves. I'm trying to offer you an opportunity here. No, thank you, I said. I've accepted a position with Nexus, one that values me appropriately from the start, not just when you realize how badly you've messed up. We're prepared to match their offer, plus a retention bonus. It's not about the money, I said, surprised to find I meant it. It's about respect. It's about 9 years of my life that your company dismissed without a thought. It's about the fact that you're calling me now, not because how I was treated was wrong, but because it's becoming expensive. What do you want then? He sounded genuinely confused. I want you to treat the people who are still there better than you treated me. I want you to look at what Dennis Porter is doing to that office and ask yourself if that's really the company you want to build. That's it. That's all I want. And for you to stop threatening to sue me for taking a new job? I didn't steal anything. I didn't poach anyone. I simply refused to be devalued. There was a long pause. No lawsuit, he finally said. You have my word. As for the rest, I'll be visiting the regional office next week to see things for myself. 3 days later, I started at Nexus. They gave me a real office, not a cubicle. My team, yes. I got to build my own team, included Maria and Devon, who had quit Martech the day after I left. Priya stayed behind. Her visa was tied to her employment there. 2 weeks after that, Dennis Porter was pursuing other opportunities. Tracy, from HR too. A month later, Sonia West called to tell me Westfield was moving their business to Nexus. The implementation team they sent couldn't find their way out of a paper bag, she said. And when I complained, they told me my expectations were unrealistic. Mark Chen from Alder followed 2 months later. Then Briarwood Systems, then TetraOrp. By the 6-month mark, 5 of my former top 10 clients had moved to Nexus. Not because I poached them, I was careful never to initiate those conversations, but because relationships matter. Trust matters. And when you've spent years proving yourself, people notice when you're gone. Gerald Martech kept his word. There was no lawsuit. There was, however, a complete restructuring of the regional office. The overseas transition was quietly abandoned. Salaries were adjusted to better match market standards. Too little, too late for many, including me. It's been 3 years now. I'm still at Nexus, Executive Vice President of Client Success. I have a team of 22. I make more money than I ever thought possible. Most importantly, I make it home, for dinner with Lucas almost every night. I haven't missed a science fair or a soccer game in years. Last month, I ran into Vernon Chang at a tech conference. He gave me a hug and told me he was proud of me. Leaving American was the best career move you could have made, he said, looking genuinely regretful. I should have protected you all better. I thought Martech would keep their promises. It's business, I said, echoing Gerald Martech's words to me. Nothing personal. But that's a lie, isn't it? It's always personal. Our work, our worth, our lives, they're deeply, intensely personal. Pretending otherwise is just a way for companies to treat people as disposable. The real revenge wasn't the clients who followed me. It wasn't Dennis getting fired or Martech losing millions. It wasn't even my beautiful new office or my big salary. The real revenge was discovering my own value. Standing up and saying, no, I am worth more than this. I deserve better. And then going out and creating that better for myself. I think about that meeting with Tracy and Dennis sometimes. That paper sliding across the desk. That moment, when they thought they had all the power and I had none, they were wrong. We all have power. Sometimes we just need to be pushed to our breaking point before we realize it. So if you're watching this, and you're in a job that doesn't value you, that treats you like you're lucky to be there, when they're actually lucky to have you, know this. You have options. You have power. You have worth. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting back at anyone. It's about getting away and building something better, even if it takes just one phone call to change everything.